that somehow in the nature of our lives, the way we go about our lives, and the nature of our society, one of the hardest things we have to do is to maintain this self-esteem. There's one thing that we're absolutely sure of, that there is no estimate that we will ever make in this world that is as important as the estimate you place on your own worth.
Hello again, everyone. This is Heartbeat, the podcast, featuring insights, stories, and experiences from the more than 50 years of work done by Landon Saunders. On today's episode, we go back to the early 90s, where Landon is visiting with a healthcare organization, and the topic is, how do we deal with this question of our own self-esteem? Now, here's Landon.
One of the things that I don't believe in is a kind of flip view of human life or of positive thinking that basically says it's all simply a matter of getting up in the morning and psyching yourself up and then going out to meet whatever the day holds. That has not been my experience as a human being, nor has it been the experience of really anyone that I know. As Scott Peck opens his book with that line, life is difficult. And that sums the whole thing up. Life is difficult. I must know how to deal with the peaks and the valleys. I must know what to do not only with the skills that I'm trying to apply that I've learned or that I'm good at, a distribution of my own giftedness to the world. My own favorite definition of a human life is a unique combination of gifts and wounds. And I think that's what every individual is, that every individual comes with this unique combination of gifts and wounds. I've never met an individual yet who wasn't gifted and who didn't have gifts to give. I also have never met a human being who didn't have wounds. And one of the challenges of life is to keep either one of them from getting the upper hand, but to maintain some sort of balance in the being able to distribute and to use and to appreciate and to enjoy the work that flows out of our gifts, but somehow not being captured or distracted or thrown off onto detours by the various woundedness that we're all going to suffer as part of this human experience. And so our question is, how, in the midst of all of this, how can I get to what's basic? How can I get to myself? How can I get myself lined up? Then we add to that still another problem, that in our society we almost worship the gods of achievement and performance and success and winning. That human value is almost based upon that. If you're a good performer or if you're highly successful, then everything's going well. Now, effectiveness is a wonderful aim. It's a wonderful goal. But not everyone can reach the same levels on an effectiveness model. What about those individuals? Sometimes effectiveness, while a worthy goal, is not the be-all and end-all of a human life. What about the moments of chaos that we all have? The times we miss? The times when we don't register so highly on the effectiveness scale? What about the times when our performance isn't quite up to par? What about those individuals who have a lot to give, but they also bumble around a lot? Does it mean that these people somehow are relegated to the margins of office work or society or organizations? I don't really think so. Robert Nozick, a Harvard philosopher, has come up with a little equation that I think is wonderfully helpful for us. And in his equation, he assigns 100 points to a human being. And here's the way those points are assigned. You get 50 points just for being alive, Then he assigns another 30 points for being alive and human. Now still, you haven't had to do anything yet. I mean, this is all built in. You get 80 points for that. So that when you wake up in the morning, that's 80, and on most grading scales, that's a B. Then you get 10 points, 10 additional points for having some level of competency, some way that you can keep the bills paid. And that gets every human being into the A category. Now, if there's anything to this model, and I think there is, it gives us a little different way to think about our lives. Now, what often happens is this 10%, the 10% that's not quite all together, the 10% that has a lot of unknowns in it, that somehow that 10% determines how I feel about myself, how I feel about my work, how I get along with the people around me. And there's something wrong, there's something tragically wrong with that. And so what we're working on today is the 90% in a way that hopefully will have some bearing and bring some relief to this 10%.
Landon will be back in less than 30 seconds. But we want to take this moment to remind you that you can always find out information about other materials that are available from Landon Saunders' work by visiting our website, thisisheartbeat.com. There's never any obligation, and we respect your privacy completely. thisisheartbeat.com. Now, back to Landon.
In self-esteem studies, children in the first grade, 80 to 85% of those children feel good about themselves. They have a sense of self-esteem and self-worth. The same test administered with upgraded for fifth graders, the number falls from 80% precipitously to 20. By the time that child is a senior in high school, it has fallen to 5%. That somehow, in the nature of our lives, the way we go about our lives, and the nature of our society, one of the hardest things we have to do is to maintain this self-esteem. There's one thing that we're absolutely sure of, that there is no estimate that we will ever make in this world that is as important as the estimate you place on your own worth. No one else probably will do that. And sometimes in a society as competitive as ours, we get this incredible feeling that that value is somehow external to me. That it is the sum of all of my wins, the sum of all my achievements, the sum of all my abilities and my performances. And what a person can live all of one's life and never know is that the value that is placed on a human life has nothing to do with anything that's external. And the greatest mistake I can ever make is to relinquish responsibility for the esteem that I give to myself. And one of the greatest powers that any of us possess is the power of an esteem, a value, a worth that is absolutely not conditional on anything that is external to us. It's hard to believe, isn't it? It's hard to make that. There is not anything in this world that has the value that a human being has. Self-esteem comes from it's a complicated thing, and there's more and more work that's being done on it. In our society, it's been based on really two things, primarily looks and performance. The importance of the way we look and being able to appreciate ourselves, it's so basic, it's so fundamental. It is so paraded. It's, every billboard, every magazine, all over the television sets. We're faced constantly with the beautiful people. Now, if I'm trying to celebrate my aliveness, my humanity, and my competency, and if I'm coming out into the workplace, something as basic and as simple, really, as my looks. Suppose I walk into the office and I'm feeling less beautiful, less handsome. How's that going to affect me? You can work on skills which should be worked on. You can work on behaviors which ought to be worked on. You can work on kind of the ethos of a workplace which ought to be worked on. But the basic building block is how each one who arrives really feels. When I come through the door, a very important work should have already taken place in my life. And if that work has taken place before I arrive, my day is absolutely going to be different. And I have to be willing to do that sort of on my own.
Well, we're just getting started with this discussion of dealing with our own self-esteem, and Landon will pick up with the issue of how performance affects the way we feel about ourselves in our next episode. We hope you'll plan to be with us. In the meantime, you're always invited to visit the website, thisisheartbeat.com, where you can find out more information and other materials that are available from the work of Landon Saunders. That's thisisheartbeat.com. Until next time, this is Heartbeat, the podcast.